What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. It's Wednesday night, so we're drafting. We're talking best ball. Join with me, very, very special guest, Bradley Stalder. Great to have you on. Great to see you. Great to chat with you. This is the first time we've ever done this. I got hooked on your stuff back in I think the fantasy data days with yourself and Billy. Fantastic show, but now you're doing a couple other things. So tell the people who you are, what you're all about.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Cody. It's great to see you face to face and not just in a draft room behind the Off the Schneid name. That we have a face to the name, and it's great being invited on. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to dice it up with you a little bit, chop it up, and looking forward to talking through some players to not draft at that ADP, and then also getting into an underdog draft. Fortunately, Cody, I was able to go to Cleveland this past weekend, not get some drafts off, get some underdog, get that fix in, but this is going to be a great opportunity for you and me to get a draft in as well tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can people find your stuff? Because I hop on your YouTube channel. You have your own, and do you know you're doing some stuff with Player Profiler? I'm not sure if you're writing anymore, but let the people know where they can find your stuff, because that's definitely key to me. Definitely a good follow. So follow Bradley on Twitter right there, and you'll get some very quality information, in my opinion. Which I hope you take highly. So let the people know where they can find your stuff. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I tweet out a lot at FF Stalder. Make sure you're checking out the Apple Podcast or Spotify Best Bell Fantasy, Bell as in bell curve. So Best Bell Fantasy. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. I also do a special Best Bell show once a week that's featured on Player Profiler. That is also on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. BestBellFantasy.com. I'm going to be putting out an upside guide that will be really helpful for best ball drafters in particular, because for many of us, and Cody, you and I were talking in the pre-show meeting about ranges of outcomes for players, and how when we talk about players, maybe we need to change each other's perspectives. And like, I'm looking forward to chopping it up and talking about specific players. But I think one of the important elements is having player takes that involve ranges of outcomes and understanding what kind of upside a player actually does have or has shown historically or was within their profile. So that's what Best Ball Fantasy focuses on, is talking about these ranges of outcomes for players, especially talking about spike weeks and what is their probability of getting spike weeks, and especially in the right situation. So I'm excited to continue to pump out content. Make sure you're subscribed there, and of course on Twitter at FF Stalder.
Yeah, big data guy, which everyone appreciates. I appreciate. You got to have data, some data. You can't just have a gut feeling take, but there should be some sort of data to back up your take. And I really appreciate that, and some actionable, tangible advice. That's what you're going to get with Bradley here. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on. Let's dig right into this. Hopefully we can be conscious of your time and chat through some of these players as best we can. So we'll kick it off. We only have one quarterback. We each picked a few players. There's only one quarterback on the list. And this is a guy that I shot off to you that I just think is insanity if you're drafting this guy. Quarterback 10. So to me, yes, that's madness. I literally do not have a single share of Anthony Richardson, whether it's in the big board or in the regular season best ball drafts. I will not have a single share of Anthony Richardson. Basically, what the market is saying is that he's going to outscore. Not only is he going to outscore Tua, Dak, Kirk, all those other quarterbacks in that kind of range, he's going to outscore these guys. But also he's going to score a minimum of basically that equates to 300 fantasy points is what he's going to throw up, because that's what the guys are throwing up around him. I don't see that being possible. And again, what the market is saying is essentially he's going to have a stat line that looks a lot like Justin Fields last year. in his second season. So you're telling me that rookie Anthony Richardson, who had 17 touchdown passes in college, is going to come in and have a stat line similar to what Justin Fields put up in his second year? I'm not even sure that Anthony Richardson starts as the starting quarterback to start the season for the Colts. We'll see. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But I will not be picking up a single share of Anthony Richardson personally at this ADP. Bradley, what are your thoughts on that?
So, a couple days before the NFL draft, his ADP was as quarterback 24. And then there was a lot of uncertainty before that time of where is he going to get drafted? Is he going to be the 107, 108, 109? Is he going to fall in the NFL draft? But the Indianapolis Colts drafted him, with the fourth pick. And with that high of draft capital, it reminds me of Cam Newton. And we're talking about the most athletic quarterback of all time in Anthony Richardson, like at the combine. So I think drafters are looking at this player and saying, can he put up rookie year Cam Newton numbers? Now, Cam Newton, his rookie year, I mean, we're talking a player who started pretty slowly. If you look at Cam Newton's rookie year, he had 5 interceptions and 4 passing touchdowns in the first 5 games. This was a pretty slow start, but in the second half, he picked it up. He was the starter of the full season, and Cam Newton finished that season as the quarterback 4 with 127 rushes, 700 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. In 17 games, can Anthony Richardson get 40 to 50 rushing yards and a half a rushing touchdown every game? I think that that's possible. And then he would just he may not be a 19 to 12 touchdown interception ratio type of guy, but if he's 15 and 15, he's probably not going to lose the job. So I think there is a lot of risk. I drafted a lot of Anthony Richardson pre-draft. So in the big board, I was drafting him as one of my favorite quarterback 2s, but this feels pretty rich to me as well. It's one of those where I'm happy with my drafting of him pre-NFL draft, and I'm just going to try to take the Dak Prescott's, the Russell Wilson. Like, there are later quarterbacks that I'm more interested in taking as my quarterback 2, because with drafting him as quarterback 10, he's your starting quarterback. You're banking on him to have the Cam Newton outcome. And I think that's the ceiling for Anthony Richardson, is quarterback 4, but it's probably going to be a really bumpy first season. And you mentioned Gardner Minshew might be the starter. Cody, I am leaning towards staying away from Richardson until we get more clarity on the start of the season.
Yeah, I agree. In the big board, I'm fine with that ADP. Quarterback 24. That's where he should be. If he was there right now, or even in the late teens, I could be talked into taking a shot on the upside for sure. And I actually absolutely love Anthony Richardson as a player. I took him in an early, before the draft, sort of fantasy draft, a dynasty draft. I took him in, the 8th overall or something, and I was getting chirped for it. I was getting, like, people were on me for an early, and now after the draft, he's being taken 101, 102, 102 at times, 103 at times, right? In dynasty drafts. So yeah, it was kind of, I like to think I was ahead of the game on that, but I still wasn't drafting him in best ball. So yeah, it's just a little rich for me. It's not impossible. And I think with the top end quarterback talent that there, exists right now in the NFL, I think it's an extremely lofty goal for him to finish at QB4. I think he could finish inside the top 10? Yeah, sure. At a ceiling in his first, rookie year. But I'm not the one that is going to be, holding the bag on this guy. That's for sure. Deshaun Watson is, around before him. And I think the upside for Deshaun Watson is QB1 potentially. Right. And that doesn't exist for Anthony Richardson. So that's kind of my take. We'll move on to a guy that you are not drafting at his current ADP. This is a first round guy, and we actually agree on this guy. But what's your take and what's your reasoning on fading Stephon Diggs at ADP, wide receiver 5, 7.5? What's your take here?
And this was before all of the chirping that's happened over the last 2 days. So if you would have asked me 2 days ago, I would have given you the same answer, Stephon Diggs. It doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with when I look at who else is available, like Diggs, I don't think has wide receiver 1 overall in his range of outcomes. It's going to be a Tyreek Hill. It's going to be a Cooper Kupp. It's going to be Devontae Adams. Like, is as much as we love ragging on Adams, he has a pathway to wide receiver 1, but I think he has a lower floor. I mean, we're talking Chase, Jefferson, Kupp, Hill. I think those are the big 4. And then I think Diggs is getting steamed up because of the wide receiver thirst right now. A lot of fantasy analysts have come in and said, hey, you need to be starting wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, or the running backs are really good later on. So you should be getting your wide receivers. And I think Diggs is better in the 108, 109, 110, much later. Because when I'm there at the 7th pick or the 8th pick, I'm looking and I was like, well, maybe I should just take Austin Eckler. Maybe I should take CD Lamb, or Devontae Adams. Although Adams is probably another one that I'm leaning away from drafting in round 1. But we saw last year, even with only Gabriel Davis there, Stephon Diggs was wide receiver 11 in rate of top 5 weeks. You're expecting your number 1 wide receiver to be delivering elite ceiling games. And Diggs wasn't dealing with injuries. I mean, Josh Allen was, but we also saw spike weeks from Gabe Davis, and Josh Allen was still a top quarterback. So I think that Diggs doesn't offer the elite upside that you're wanting in that, like, when you're drafting that early. You want someone who, when they hit the nuts, will be a 40-point, 35-point week guy. And Diggs just didn't show that last year, and he struggled to show it, I mean, over the last few years from an elite ceiling perspective. Now, is he a great floor asset? Absolutely. Like, Diggs is really safe, but I have concerns, like, when I'm looking at who else I can draft and I want to win my league, I don't want to play it safe. Like, Diggs is one I'm probably not drafting too much.
Yeah, I'm going to make this quick and easy. I 100% agree with quite literally everything you just said there, to be honest with you, because 136 drafts so far in this regular season for best ball for me. This is not talking big board. I have 1.5% Stephon Diggs. So that was very forceful to get those two drafts in with Stephon Diggs. I'm again, like you said, that upside, like for this range, give me CD Lamb, give me Garrett Wilson over Stephon Diggs. I'm probably not drafting them literally over Stephon Diggs because you just won't have to make that decision. But in a vacuum, yeah, give me those 2 players over Stephon Diggs. And similarly, what you're saying with Devontae Adams, I agree. He is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, period. End of conversation. But his situation, and I said this last week on the show, his situation just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. But until he's not that guy, he's still that guy, right? We didn't expect what we saw last year from him with Derek Carr, and we got it. So I'm not going to count him out. So I have been purposefully trying to draft Devontae Adams. And again, in a vacuum, give me Devontae Adams over Stephon Diggs as well. So, yeah, I quite easily agree with pretty much literally everything you just said there.
Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown over Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, a little closer for me, but I agree. I do agree. So we'll move on to some running back here. Tony Pollard, this is my guy. I put this guy on the board. I have 0% in the big board, 0% in regular season. I have not drafted a single Tony Pollard share. It's just because the ADP, it's not that I hate Tony Pollard. That's certainly not the reasoning behind this. It's just that I like the players that go around him a ton more, namely the wide receivers. You got Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, and T. Higgins. A lot of times you can get those guys in the same area. And then even Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson. I'm taking all of those players over Tony Pollard. I just think that he can do his most damage with 12 to 16 touches in a game. And that's roughly where he was last year. He was about 14 touches last year. Yes, he can get some more touches and he could boost up to, 250 carries with, call it 40 to 50 catches, something like that. But then there's durability concerns for me. I just don't think that he's that guy. I don't think he's a workhorse every down back. And I'm not going to, again, another reason that I'm not going to be the one holding the bag. I'm not taking him as my RB1 and then just hoping that he's going to, not exceed expectations, because the expectations are being put on him, via his ADP. And I'm just not taking him at that ADP at all. Literally big board. I won't be taking him until he falls until at least the 30s, or if he does. But that's just my take. What are your thoughts there, Brad?
Yeah, I really like the Tony Pollard price. Actually, he's one of my truther guys, Cody. I've been on Mind to Mansion podcast with Matt Kelly, and he asked me about Tony Pollard, and I said Tony Pollard could get to the end of round 1, and I still be drafting him. I think he has the pathway to be the running back 1 overall. He doesn't need, as you mentioned, he's not built for 25 touches in a game. That's not Tony Pollard's, but it's the efficiency. It's the efficiency not only on the ground but also in the passing game. And if he gets 14 carries a game and 5 targets in that type of efficiency, in that type of Dallas Cowboys offense, in a dome with a resurgent Dak Prescott, the better receiving core that opens up the entire field, I think and the loss of Dalton Schultz, who will gobble those low A dot targets. I'm in on Tony Pollard, and I think that, I understand the fears of Pollard because he's coming off of an injury. He won't be able to carry the full load. So that's another reason why you should be taking, if you have 0%, Cody, you should be drafting like 100% Malik Davis, or like 50% Malik Davis, 50% Ronald Jones, if that's the fade. Or maybe you're leaning into one of these free agent running backs that are still hanging out there, like Dalvin Cook. But if you take a player stance like that, I think you need to, if you yin, you got to yang. So I'm hoping that those are like, a draft strategy that, we can have conflicting views on this player, but it comes down to how are you responding as well to later picks as well that may be correlated with that same opinion. Because I'm bullish on the Dallas Cowboys offense. I think that they'll do better this coming year. With Ezekiel Elliott out, you'll have better touches going to the running back position. And even if a running back comes in that's like a rush gobbler, like, gets 10 carries in a game that don't mean anything. I mean, Tony Pollard was the running back 1 overall in a week last year, in the same game that Ezekiel Elliott had 12 touches. So I am bullish on Tony Pollard, but I think if he's not healthy to start the season, or if they bring in Dalvin Cook, I think that would be an eyebrow raise of, well, maybe I do need to like reel in my opinion. But for right now, I am in on Tony Pollard.
Well, that, like you said, with the range of outcomes, new offensive coordinator, the broken leg, and then the range of outcomes conversation. If Dalvin Cook gets signed, or even Ezekiel Elliott, because I have been drafting Ezekiel Elliott, I'm still a believer. I'm okay with, if he does exactly what he did last year, I'm happy to draft him at 170 whatever, 173 or something like that ADP. So what happens to Tony Pollard? And, if that does happen, his ADP certainly falls, right? And I've been doing some looking into Michael Leone's Best Ball Manifesto, talking about finishing ADP. I can't remember the term.
Closing line value, right?
There you go. The closing line value on ADP. And if these types of things happen for Tony Pollard, his ADP is going to fall. So I'm not against taking Tony Pollard. I haven't gotten a single share, but I'm not against taking him. I'm just against taking him at this ADP and with the other guys that go around him. So if he falls to where I think he should be, in that kind of RB dead zone, in my opinion, with Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Travis
Etienne, a pretty flat tier.
Yeah, if he falls into that tier of running back in ADP wise, I'm a buyer. But we'll see what happens, and if he gets down there, and it would take something like Dalvin Cook getting signed there to to cause that. But I am drafting Ezekiel Elliott, like you said, yin and yang, thinking he probably does get re-signed with the Cowboys at this point, unless it's my Bengals. So we'll see. But we'll move on to another wide receiver here. This is a guy that you're not drafting. Wide receiver 12, ADP 19, Chris Olave. What's your take? What's your reasoning here?
I think there aren't pathways for Olave to be elevated in this New Orleans offense. The Saints have gone out of their way to yet again say, we're going to run the ball a lot. And I know that there's this chatter of, oh, Derek Carr is coming in, and they wouldn't have signed Derek Carr to this big contract if they didn't want to pass the ball. No, they also signed Jamal Williams to a respectable free agent deal. They also drafted Kendre Miller. I mean, the Saints were one of the run heaviest teams in the NFL last year, 54% pass rate. I don't think that's going to uptick very much. So there's a smaller pie. Michael Thomas is healthy, and that's a 20% target share. That is not insignificant to Chris Olave. Now, Olave in his time where he was sharing with Michael Thomas did out target him. But at the same time, that may vary from week to week. So I think it's a smaller pie. There is a healthy Michael Thomas. You also have respectable piece in Juwan Johnson. Alvin Kamara is not officially suspended yet. So I think there's some baked market concern with Kamara. He's being drafted. I think I drafted him in the hundreds an FPC draft a couple days ago. But this New Orleans Saints offense, from a team view, doesn't seem like a firepower. And then from a divisional view, they're getting into it with who else is in their division, right? These games, interdivisional games, are not going to be shootouts. This is something that Matt Kelly and I were talking about on Mind to Mansion. Just from the so much overlapping of these interdivisional games, they're not going to be pushing. We're not going to get into 30-point shootouts with the Saints offense. So to see Chris Olave pay off at wide receiver 12 or higher, you're banking on him overcoming a mediocre environment, which he couldn't do last year, and overcoming a respectable wide receiver 2 returning to the lineup. So I have concerns about Olave paying off of this ADP. I like him as a profile. I like his target share. There are efficiency metrics that certainly merit him to be considered in the dynasty top 12. But not in best ball for right now, especially given that even last year, when he was the number 1 wide receiver for almost the entirety of the season, he didn't have a single week where he would have ranked in the top 5. So,
yeah. No, I agree. At this ADP, you can't really talk. I have drafted a little bit of him, mostly because when it gets to me, it's those quarterbacks that I don't exactly want to pick for whatever I'm building. It's, Patrick Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen that are all there, and then Chris Olave and, Tony Pollard, who I don't particularly love, Josh Jacobs, who I don't love. And so then I click Chris Olave. But you are right. And I think that's been kind of a lot of guys have just kind of run with he's a spike week and an ADOT darling is what he is. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there is if he's going at wide receiver 12. He's a wide receiver 1 is what the market's saying. And, he is a wide receiver 1 on the Saints team, on the Saints offense. But again, like you said, we're just saying that Chris Olave is going to, out target Michael Thomas by 50, 60 targets is what the market is essentially saying with this ADP. So I have been sprinkling in a little bit, just forcing it in there. But I agree at this ADP, you're certainly taking on a lot of risk, and it's a little bit of unnecessary risk with the guys again that are going around them. So I definitely agree with that one.
And from a week 17 perspective, Saints versus Buccaneers week 17, or are we looking at, in the same round, you mentioned Tony Pollard, maybe a reason to be bumping him up is he gets the Detroit Lions. That could be a massive shootout in a dome. Mm-hmm. Whereas, if this is week 17, New Orleans plays in Tampa, that could be rainy. It could be bad weather. They're already not a high scoring, what we expect to be good offenses. So maybe that's another reason for us to be considering. Maybe it's not Tony Pollard, but maybe it is taking your quarterback in round 2, like you mentioned, Jalen Hurts, or maybe a consideration of Josh Allen. Maybe it's T. Higgins because of that week 17. But those are things to keep in mind is not only is the player profile not there for Chris Olave, but the week 17 correlation is there.
Yeah, give me Devontae Smith over him every single
Yeah.
time, and he's going 1.5 picks later in ADP. So 100% agree there. It's certainly risky. I like Chris Olave, don't get me wrong, but it's a very risky proposition at that ADP. We'll try to both through some of these to respect your time for this evening. We got running back.
Oh, I'm here for it, Cody. We can take as long as we need. So
okay.
Whatever you want.
We'll both through a few more because there's some that I certainly want to get your perspective on.
Okay.
But then we'll cut it off a little bit early to get into this draft. But this is a guy that I do want to touch on. I'm not drafting him. I had two shares of him in the big board. I have 0 cents. So basically nothing for Josh Jacobs. This guy still has not signed his franchise tag, which is not exactly shocking, to be honest. Neither is Saquon. Tony Pollard did, but that makes more sense. Or did Tony Pollard sign his? I think he did. Either way, Saquon, yeah, I think he did. Saquon did not. But the big thing here that concerns me is this team did not extend the 5th-year option to Josh Jacobs. Then there is 0 talks for a contract negotiation. There is no talks anywhere. There is no buzz. There's nothing. They are not meeting. There's no tangible negotiation going on here. So they're just basically saying, hey, Josh Jacobs, we're going to run you into the ground, and then we're going to kick you to the curb, and we're going to pay you as little as possible while we're doing it. That is literally what they're saying to Josh Jacobs, and he's not stupid. He knows what they're saying to him. He got 340 carries last year, plus 50 something, just 53 catches, I think, just shy of 400 total touches. You're telling me that he's going to bounce back and be that same guy? To me, there is no chance of that happening. Quick little fun fact as well about Josh Jacobs. He has 0 receiving touchdowns in his career. Not a single receiving touchdown in his career. He has 107 catches in the last 2 seasons, 160 in his career, with not a single receiving touchdown. Fun fact. So
he's due, right, Cody? He's due.
He's due. Yeah, he's due for a big receiving touchdown here. So RB10, ADP 127. I am really not touching Josh Jacobs at all. What's your take on Jacobs in Las Vegas?
Yeah, at ADP, this is one of those times where I'm considering like Mark Andrews instead. I'm pivoting to tight end, especially if I'm at the end of, round 3 and it's Mark Andrews, then tapping Lamar Jackson. But with Josh Jacobs, the offense is probably not going to be as good. They'll probably lean into him. Jacobs was healthy for pretty much all of last year, which was not the case in his previous seasons. He has shown to break down over the course of a season, even when he's younger.
Yeah, that was the first time in his career he's played every game.
Right. And so you don't expect that. And on what could be a lost season for Josh Jacobs, you wonder if maybe this is the year to be drafting Zamir White. Like, a lot of people were in on Zamir White last year. Like, if you're out on Josh Jacobs, once again, draft your Zamir Whites, because that could be the guy to step in and be the number 2. He was an interesting eyebrow raised prospect last year. But I'm looking at other players, like, give me Breece Hall. Breece Hall, if he's healthy, possible 101 overall conversation. If he hadn't torn his ACL, we'd be talking about Breece Hall in the same conversation as Christian McCaffrey. But because he's coming back from the ACL, that's the ACL injury. Breece Hall is getting drafted after Josh Jacobs. So I'm interested in taking Hall over Jacobs at this point. But it's Ramondre versus Josh Jacobs. It looks like pretty close in the ADPs. And give me Ramondre. It probably a better offense, at least more stability there. And he's more efficient than Jacobs, even though Jacobs is going to get a lot more opportunities. I think that they're going to, as you mentioned earlier, run him into the ground. So Jacobs is a player that I'm also not drafting a ton of at this spot.
Yeah, and he catches touchdown passes, Ramondre. But but no, yeah, he's just a guy that I'm avoiding completely. I would be more inclined to take a shot on Brees Hall, but I'm pretty much out on him as well. But either way, yeah, and like you mentioned there, Zig, when you or the people zag, like I'm taking a ton of Zamir White right now. Round 18 Zamir White, I am all over that. I think he was in the ADPs of about 180 last year. So you're saying he's a guy last year and he's not now that his situation's better? For me, like it is within the realm of possibilities that Zamir White is the running back in Las Vegas this year, honestly, potentially even from week 1. Literally. That's within the range of possibilities. And it's 18th round. He's completely free. So if you're giving me a free player that has a range of outcomes that equals running back 1 on his team, I'm going to take him an incredible amount, which is what I'm doing right now. So there's my little take on Zamir White, my little rant. We'll get into another wide receiver quickly with DK Metcalf, wide receiver 15, ADP 128.1. What's your take on DK? This is your guy you're not drafting.
Yeah, this is a player around the same spot as your boy, Josh Jacobs. DK Metcalf last year. Oh, I'm trying to pull it up. Where 0% of his weeks were top 5. He has a career rate of 12% and 12% top 5 rate. But I mean, he's been out spike weeked by Tyler Lockett pretty much every season. And then the Seattle Seahawks bring in Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has a better player profile than DK Metcalf. He has higher draft capital, prestigious player. Like the reason why he was faded was because he was coming off the hamstring injury that kept him out most of the 2022 season. But this is a player who Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave all view as better than themselves. And when that praise is getting around, I mean, can't ignore the fact that like DK Metcalf is probably not going to come off the field in 2 wide receiver sets, but the Jackson Smith and Jigba will probably be a problem for the upside for both Lockett and DK Metcalf. So getting at wide receiver 15, I'd rather take JSN and Tyler Lockett at their ADPs if I want to be targeting the Seattle offense, because Metcalf has struggled this past season in top 5 rate and even in flex rate. Like, you're getting a flex, 30-40% of the time. You want a player who's going to be consistently getting into your starting lineup, or if they're not, they're hitting spike weeks. So give me players like Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper who can hit harder when they hit, or who have higher floors. Like DK Metcalf is the ugly in between of the Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen for me. And I'd rather have those types of wide receivers over DK.
I do. I can see a ton of points you're making, but in a vacuum, in a nutshell, I kind of disagree. I actually really like DK Metcalf. A few reasons why. I think when he hits, his spike weeks are higher than those 2 players that you mentioned, in my opinion, for sure. Because I'm looking at it, but the point that I can't deny, and I certainly can't say isn't there, is bringing in Jackson Smith and Jigba. That definitely hurts his value. That concerns me. The only thing is it's another year in the offense. It's another year with the quarterback. And I'm looking at the game that he played in the playoffs against the 49ers, 13 targets, 10 catches, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was the last game that he played, with Geno Smith, obviously. So that's the type of production that he can have. Yes, we need it to happen more frequently, no question about it. But that certainly does exist. And then another reason why I like DK is the defenses that he's playing against twice a year. That division is ripe for the taking for pass catchers. So this includes all the wide receivers for Seattle. I'm actually drafting quite a bit of them. A little more, definitely DK, a little more Lockett than JSN, just because I've seen Lockett do it every single year forever, it seems. So I'm going to take a little more Lockett than JSN. But those defenses that he's playing, the 49ers, we saw what DK did to him last year, and that defense is arguably worse, especially in the secondary. The Cardinals might have the worst defense in the NFL. They might be the worst team in the NFL. The Rams, no more Jalen Ramsey. They're going to be a tough team, they're going to be an easy team to score on, especially through the air. So those 6 games, they're right for the taking for me. So that's kind of my take on why I like DK Metcalf, because he can pop off. We've seen it, and that's the ceiling: 10 catches, 100 plus yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he does need to do it a little more frequently. I am betting on the upside, and like you kind of touched on as well, the kind of area that he's going in with, Josh Jacobs, Mark Andrews, Breece Hall, Calvin Ridley, even Deebo Samuel, all these guys in that range. I'm willing to roll the dice on DK Metcalf. That's kind of my take on it because of the range, and it depends on where you're picking, because your pick has to fall within that range. And when I'm there, instead of reaching for a Keenan Allen, even a Najee, even further down the line, Travis Etienne's in that range, DeAndre Hopkins, right? There's not a ton of sexy names and sexy picks that I think can pop off the way that DK can. So that's my take on him. Yeah, but you certainly bring up some really good points, especially at ADP. But yeah,
DK Metcalf over the last 3 years has been wide receiver. So of games played by all wide receivers being drafted right now in Underdog, he's wide receiver 15 in 84th percentile score. So like if you take the 84th percentile score of all of the games that each of those players have played, he's wide receiver 15, which lands right where we want. But there are a lot of players who are going like after Metcalf that are above him. So I wonder if, especially like the Tyler Lockett's, you mentioned this is a reason why we should be drafting Lockett a lot more in best ball. He just gives you the spike weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I prefer just other players right there. Feels like Metcalf has like let us down, in previous years too.
You're not
But
wrong. Yeah.
but you make a strong point about the other defenses, and that's a point that will probably gain steam, as we get closer to the start of the season with a lot more chatter about schedules and impact.
We'll talk about 2 more guys, and then we'll get into this draft. I really appreciate your time. We're taking up way more time than we're usually going to, so I really appreciate that. This is a guy that I want to talk about for sure, and then I'll let you pick the last guy. So TJ Hawkinson, tight end 3, ADP 50.9. What's your take? Talk me off this ledge, because I am drafting a lot of TJ Hawkinson.
I like TJ Hawkinson, the player. I think he fits really well with Minnesota. Like we saw a lot of targets. But when I'm there in, 50th overall, round 5, we're looking at what, that's where I'm looking at Justin Fields really hard if I haven't drafted a quarterback, because Fields can win you weeks. Hawkinson had one big winning week last year, but that was when he was with the Lions, and we know what kind of offense the Lions were really leaning into him in that particular game. But based on not only like me liking Justin Fields, but also looking at what kind of build I've made at this point in the draft. Usually I've gone very wide receiver heavy, and it's at this point where I'm considering probably in round 5, maybe I'm taking my first running back. So I like Kenneth Walker in round 5. I like Joe Mixon in round 5. I like J.K. Dobbins in round 5 as example anchors for running back. So I guess it's like I don't hate TJ Hawkinson, the player. It's just when I'm building my rosters, it's kind of awkward to say I need TJ Hawkinson to pay off. And I think that Hawkinson has the pathway to be like the tight end 1 if Kelsey gets hurt. I think that's within the range of outcomes if Kelsey is injured. But the pass volume is going to be there for the Vikings. Like, I like his profile. I just wish it was maybe in round 6 would be probably like the right spot for me in how I'm building my teams to be taking a Hawkinson. Yeah, I'm not enthused by a lot of the wide receivers there. So it's probably going to be Fields, or I love the Chargers this year, and Herbert is going in round 5 as well. So if I'm going Denver Chargers, that's been something that's been heavily on my mind as well, and veering me away from drafting TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, unfortunately, the steam is caught on with the Chargers, and we're going to end up paying a premium by the end of by end of August, early September, sort of thing. In
Well, that's
those
why I'm
August
getting
drafts,
my shares in right now here.
pick them up as much as you can, people. But for me, for TJ Hawkinson, you mentioned a couple things there that I agree with completely, and that is also why I'm drafting TJ Hawkinson, because of the way that you're building your team. So I find a lot of times in the range that you're picking in the first round and then second round and subsequent rounds after that. Obviously, we know how drafts work. But if I'm getting a second round quarterback, a lot of times I will be drafting TJ Hawkinson in that 48 range, right around there. And then I'm obviously building a one quarterback, one tight end room. And then it basically makes it extremely less important that I draft another quarterback or tight end anytime soon. So I'm able to go wide receiver, running back first round, quarterback second round, wide receiver, running back, tight end, and then I fill out, my roster from there. So that's kind of why those are the exact reason that you're saying, the way that you're building your team. That's why I'm taking a lot of TJ Hawkinson. And then there's the couple, you got to mix in a couple when you're first overall, and then you get Jefferson, and then you get Hawkinson at the turn there. You got to mix in a couple of those. But beyond that, yeah, if I'm getting, say, Jamar Chase and then Patrick Mahomes, then I'll bring in TJ Hawkinson later on to just fill out that tight end and quarterback onesies, right? Fill that out. And I don't particularly care who I get at quarterback and tight end. I'll look to correlate or I'll look to stack, but beyond that, I don't particularly care. So I can fill out those onesie spots and then just hammer tight wide receiver and running back for the rest of the draft. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Plus, I do think that TJ Hawkinson has, I think he has the ability and the situation and the potential and all of that to put up Travis Kelce-esque numbers. I'm not saying he can be tight end 1 over Travis Kelce, that's for sure. But I most certainly think he can be tight end 2 over Mark Andrews. Absolutely. So that's kind of my take. I'm drafting a lot of TJ Hawkinson. He's my number 2 most drafted tight end, and it's not by a lot and more dollars than the number 1 tight end. I have 17% TJ Hawkinson, and his ADP is actually falling. It was about 44 roughly earlier on in the summer, so it's kind of falling, and it's almost at 51. Maybe it'll get 52. If it keeps falling, I'm going to keep picking up shares personally. But again, it depends on how I'm building my roster. Like I said, if I'm going quarterback early, chances are relatively high I might be taking TJ Hawkinson to get those onesies out of the way. What's your thoughts there? Did I talk you into taking him once or twice more?
I'm here for drafting him, as I said, like in round 6. I think that, I'll wait if he's going to continue to fall. I'm just going to continue to wait because as I said, I do like, the situation he's in. The Vikings project to be among the top 3 in pass attempts again this year, and he commands 20% of the targets. So that's pretty significant for a tight end on a high volume offense. We don't know what Jordan Addison is going to bring to the table immediately. So it may be that, especially early in the season, TJ Hawkinson could be giving you some spike weeks more so, but maybe that's a reason to, in tournament settings, be veering away from him if you're banking on Jordan Addison taking a step forward. Depends on what story you're selling yourself, like in how you view Jordan Addison and how he might impact TJ Hawkinson. So if you think Addison isn't that good, or he's just going to be a guy, or whatever, it's going to take him a while to acclimate, like, then you should be drafting TJ Hawkinson pretty aggressively. But if you think that he merited the first round capital, he's a good player prospect, and we've seen what first round wide receivers can do spiking in the second half of the season, it depends on what your view is of Jordan Addison's impact on TJ Hawkinson. I think that's ultimately going to, inform you of whether you are in or out overall on Hawkinson. I'm in on Hawkinson. I just want a better price.
Yeah, I hear that, and that's literally exactly why I'm buying so much TJ Hawkinson, because I don't believe that Jordan Addison is going to be just that guy as a rookie. So that, yeah, it's a good point, and I 100% agree, because that's exactly why I am drafting a lot of TJ Hawkinson. So let's get into a draft. I appreciate your time again. We went way over time than usual,
We're
so I
having fun here,
appreciate
Cody.
it.
We're having a good
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Do you want to do a Best Ball Mania? Let's see if we can get in. If you want to do that.
Sure, I'm open for whatever. I mean, we'll be co-drafting this one because I'm in Michigan, so
Oh yeah, we'll see if we can get in. The only issue, oh man, the only issue is this: when puppies and poodles are running, people aren't particularly jumping into Best Ball Mania drafts. So we'll give it a minute or two, but I think we're gonna have to jump into a puppy just because they feel
I'm cool with whatever here, Cody.
exponentially quicker. So let's do that, because we're not gonna wait for 10 more people to come in. All right, and 2 more people to join.
Let's go.
So let's go. I wonder. I've been getting, for your own awareness here, I've been getting nothing but the 108 and
Ugh.
later.
I
Yeah,
mean, I like the 112 this year.
I'd rather the 112 than the 18. That's for sure. So I've been getting a lot of that lately. So just so you're aware, going into this, chances are we're gonna have a late pick, but we'll
I'm
see.
I'm here for it. I am here for it.
All right, what do we got?
Looks like we're almost filled here.
We're filled. Yep. What I tell you? What I tell you?
We got the one.
111.
Hey,
111.
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the 111, and like looking at who's usually available there, I mean, Diggs is usually off the board at that point. Sometimes it's AJ Brown, but sometimes it's not. Uh, I've seen Bijan fall to the 112, 201. I've been out on Bijan Robinson in the first round, but I'll draft him in early second round. What are your thoughts on Bijan? Now falling to running back 3.
Yeah, oddly enough, and I'm really kicking myself for this. I just didn't quite think he'd get drafted in the NFL draft as highly as he did. I have like 0% Bijan in the big board when he was going at like ADP 30. And now I have quite a bit of exposure in the regular season draft now that he's going in the first round. So that's on me. But yeah, I don't mind Bijan, because there's a few reasons. I love his playoff schedule, and he should be a very large part of that offense. So I certainly don't mind taking Bijan. I miss the days when you could get Austin Eckler, at the turn, back when, I don't know, people were crazy and concerned about him not being on the team. Whatever it was, those days are gone now. But I find myself a lot of times double tapping wide receiver. Obviously, with these 5 guys here, it makes sense. It's easy to do. You can correlate week 17 with CD Lamb and Amon Ra.
I
So there's
love
lots
doing
of,
that. I
yeah.
love doing that.
It's just going to be like, I've got a lot of that, and I'm sure a lot of people do. So it's not going to be very, or it's going to be very common. It's not going to be a very unique lineup.
But it's also like you mentioned why you might be out on Pollard, but maybe you go CD Lamb and Pollard in round 2 to correlate that game, or maybe you go to stack that game, or maybe you go Amon Ra and then Tony Pollard to make, because Tony Pollard's not going to come back to you in round 3, so that might be a way to get more in that game.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And sometimes I mix in Jameer Gibbs instead in
Yes,
the next turn, right? So
yes,
there's definitely certain things you can do there. I'd rather have the Dallas side of that game. And I think you would as well, going off of your CD and Pollard takes. I would much rather have a Dallas player going against the Detroit defense than a Detroit player going against what might be the number 1 defense in the NFL against the Cowboys. You do
well,
want to
Detroit
correlate
has
either way,
done a
but
lot this offseason in addressing defensive, but maybe
yeah.
by that time the defense has come together. I mean, we saw last year the Baltimore Ravens have arguably the worst secondary in the NFL for the first 4 weeks, and then they really pulled it together and became one of the best defenses by the end of the season. So defenses can change, they can get better, chemistry can improve, but injuries can also impact defenses. And so for us to make, like, we certainly have opinions about defense. Like you can say Dallas has some very strong talent on their defense, but that could shift very quickly, come week 17. All right, we see Brown, Lamb, Adams,
Wilson, Brown. I think you got to go AJ Brown here for me with this guy taking Derrick Henry for no good reason.
Yeah, let's go AJ Brown because then we get Philly. We can attack some Philly.
Yeah, and Philly's a team that again, their playoff schedule I am in love with, especially Week 17 against the Arizona Cardinals, which I mentioned earlier could be the worst team in the NFL and the worst defense. So I'm trying to pick up as much Philly as I can, even if they're one-offs without correlation. I'm still taking them. But what are your thoughts here? Double tap wide receiver, mix in a running back. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's go either St. Brown or Waddle. I'm good with either of those.
Let's mix in some Amon-Ra. You don't like Garrett Wilson there?
I'm here for the high upside. I will take Wilson. I will sprinkle him in. I think that Wilson is one of the players I'm a real truther for in the mid-second round. I've seen players take him at the 111, for instance, to make sure they get him on before like the turn. But it's going to be you drafting Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, or you're banking on Wilson to be the comeback guy around, and then you have to be saying, okay, I'm going to get Amari Cooper in round 4, and Deshaun Watson round 6 or 7. So, that's how I'm viewing Garrett Wilson. And I'd rather tie myself to Detroit or Dallas, like as the first. Like if I'm ranking the stacks, I'd rather have the Detroit Dallas matchup.
Yeah, I actually agree with that completely. I have been drafting Garrett Wilson as the comeback because later on in drafts, I've been mixing. I haven't been doing a ton of Cooper in that instance. I've actually been waiting because you can get double tap Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore, who I really like. So you can do that in round whatever it is, 8 and 9 or 9 and 10, whatever it is, and double tap Browns there, and then hopefully you get Njoku is in the next round. Exactly. Which I have gotten that a few times. And then, Garrett Wilson ends up being your bring back. Yes, there a lot of things have to fall right, for you to get that. But at the end of the day, I don't hate having, just a naked Garrett Wilson, even if it's just with Watson and Elijah Moore, or maybe I just bring it back with Elijah Moore and have that, mini 2-player stack. Yeah. So it does bring options, but I mean, realistically, in that 111, 112, even 110 range, I really don't think you can go wrong because I'm drafting any combination of all of those players. And I really don't care, how it looks. There's obviously the Bijan and Devontae Adams stack as well. Jonathan Taylor stack that
the Vegas Indy stack there.
Exactly.
That's one. One other perspective to take on Garrett Wilson is he's probably a better season-long pick because Underdog has, yes, they have the tournament setting, but they also have a prize pool for the regular season. And I think Garrett Wilson is one of those players that will be better, relatively speaking, for the regular season, weeks 1 through 14. Then you get to week 17 in Cleveland, which we know last year, week 16, week 17, when the Browns played the Saints in Cleveland, it was a snowy mess off of Lake Erie. So, that's within the range of outcomes of, especially during that time of year. It's December 31st. It is cold. It is winter. It is wet. It is nasty. And you don't want to be banking on, like in your tournament settings, a team that could be just running the ball 40 times. If you believe that, then you should be drafting Breece Hall maybe a lot earlier. Maybe you should be drafting Nick Chubb earlier. Like that. Those are things to be considering if that's your take on Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially if you're sitting there in the finals. It's week 17, you're in the Best Ball Mania finals, and then you see a snowstorm blow in, and you're sitting there with Garrett Wilson and
because Aaron Rodgers might just throw 20 passes and that's it.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong there. That's for sure. So what are we thinking here on the 3-4 turn? Chances are Hertz won't get to us. That's all fine and good. This is kind of that dead zone that we kind of alluded to a little bit in the regular content there. That
Right.
neither of us are a massive fan of a lot of these players. I don't think we could have 100% agreement on any of these players. But what are your thoughts here? Are you looking at bye weeks potentially? Is there anything that what's your take on the turn here?
So one player if we go Keenan Allen, maybe we come back with Jerry Judy.
Yep, love that.
And then we go 4 straight wide receivers, but
Yep.
that's something to consider because of their correlation. I don't think that there's anything really Philly or Detroit. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs might be a consideration for us here.
What's your thoughts on Najee?
I'm not a Najee fan. I'm probably going to be more in this year than I was last year. I was out on Najee. I had 0% Najee last year, and it paid off pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be drafting a little bit. I'm just not. I don't know. I'd rather if we went Keenan, probably just come back around for Judy, or we go Jahmyr Gibbs. I think those are the correlation possibilities.
Yeah. These are. I think we touched on, or no, we didn't. I think you and I were maybe talking about it before we went live there about both Keenan Allen and Jerry Judy being guys for me personally that news came out to me that I definitely want to start drafting more of these guys, and I have been trying to do that. So I'm certainly on board. Plus, with all these, realistically, all of these wide receivers except for AJ Brown, we can bring back the quarterback later
very
in
easily.
the draft with
and we
all
can
of
just
these
take
guys.
two.
Yeah.
We can take a Herbert and Goff. We can take a Herbert and Russ. We can I mean probably I don't know. We can take a
No, you're not.
Russ and Goff.
Yeah.
And just leave it there and just say, we're right about these two quarterbacks. Those are who we need. Goff is a spike week king, and we've seen Russ put up massive spike weeks in the past as well. So in week 17, where they're facing the Chargers, I'm here for it. And Detroit facing Dallas, yeah, give me that in a dome. Yeah, we know how Jared Goff plays in a dome. So
yeah, and especially with the Chargers and the Broncos, you can get a lot of correlating pieces later on in
late.
the draft as well. So the tight ends, even quarterback with Denver with Russell Wilson. Marvin Mims is a guy that I like and have drafted quite a bit of.
Oh, for sure.
Quentin Johnston's the guy that I'm really not at ADP, especially. I'm very much avoiding him, but in a pinch, if he's the only guy, or maybe I missed out on Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler, but Herbert falls, which he has been falling way past ADP, and I'll take Herbert there, and then I'll just bring it back with Quentin Johnston and Gerald Everett. Begrudgingly, I'll take Quentin Johnston as ADP just to get the stack completed. But what I'm getting at is there's just lots of options there. So.
Yeah, and we like Gerald Everett as a late tight end. I like Greg Dulcich. I'm drafting a lot of Dulcich. I mean, you can draft Sam Laporta, but round 18 Brock Wright, round 18 James Mitchell. Like, pick your poison there. We could go Dallas Goedert later. I don't mind a correlation with that. There's a lot of options. I like what we've done so far because we've opened ourselves up to good offenses with spike week potential that are correlated. And I think that's part of what, the first 4 rounds are so important, that you're establishing like a pathway and a direction for, if things go right, I'm not conflicting, I'm just correlating. And, this is, yes, maybe it's a parlay, but it's a compounded parlay. That there are dependent pieces here, and it makes sense for if they're drafted and Herbert goes off. That sucks.
Yeah,
But
that really hurts. But like you're kind of alluding to, I think they're in a vacuum. All of these players I'm taking regardless, and then they also correlate. So
right.
it's you're taking good players and good offenses with the added upside of correlation, and matchup spike weeks, all kinds of different reasons to take these types of players. So 100% agree with all of that. That really
Now,
does hurt that Herbert goes, because that's what I was really hoping for.
now we could consider like I like in this spot J.K. Dobbins if he's still there for us. We mentioned JSN. I know you're not like huge on JSN, which is fine. I just don't see anyone that's really correlating for us right now that could fit for our ADPs.
Well, one thing I don't mind doing with JSN and the Seattle Seahawks, like, yeah, we're not particularly correlating. We do have a little bit with Philly, but sometimes I'll double tap the Seattle wide receivers here. And
Yeah, we
then,
already have 4 wide receivers though, and I think structurally we should be considering like
yeah,
running back like Aaron Jones at this
agree.
spot.
I'm not saying it for this exact build, but
Yeah.
that's a lot of times what I do. But I'm down with Aaron Jones if that makes sense for you. You get
Yeah,
some
I'm okay with
correlation with
that.
Detroit there. So, and he's still a 200 point running back.
Oh, for
People
sure. And
don't want to
then
talk about that for some reason.
I mean, you're talking to a Green Bay guy. You can tell all the Packer stuff in the back of my. But Aaron Jones over the last 3 years, a 9% top 5 rate, and in his career a 13% top 5 rate. Last year, 11% top 5 rate. So this is a player who can access elite ceiling games, and he's probably going to be leaned upon pretty heavily by Jordan Love. He and AJ Dillon will be carrying pretty heavy loads for that first time starter.
Yeah, the Packers should finally run the ball like they should have been last year, but we'll see. What's your thoughts on the next pick? I've been drafting a lot of Miles Sanders here. I think there's an opportunity for him to be minimum an RB2 and kind of equate his stats from last year. What's your take?
I haven't drafted a lot of Sanders, but I don't mind it at all, especially given our build. And they're going to lean pretty heavily on Sanders. This will allow us to ignore running back for a while and then focus on, I think, the right prices for the Broncos pieces that may be coming later, the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, it would have been a reach to take Goddard. Maybe Goddard does come back to us. That would be a nice piece in round 7. I don't think he'll make it back to us, but it's worth a shot.
No, not likely. We do have a little bit of week 16 correlation with Green Bay. And I like Miles Sanders because he was signed to a team where his head coach that drafted him is at, the running back coach that drafted him and he played for is at. So yeah, and the offensive line is quite good now. All of a sudden, you blink and you might have missed it. The offensive line is quite good in Carolina. They got a rookie quarterback. I'm a pretty heavy buyer of Miles Sanders personally. So yeah, especially as like a onesie, and you can find correlation later. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with him in this build. I have no objection to Sanders being our running back too. Let me look up. Last year, Miles Sanders was running back 8 in terms of top 5 weeks. He was at 13% over the last 3 years. Sanders is at 9%, and his career rate is 9.7%. So he's still, accessing about running back 15 or so upside, which is fine for where we drafted him for our build. And we're banking on our wide receivers being right and our running backs doing enough to do well for us. So
Show up in our lineup essentially.
yes, and that's fine because we're banking on the quarterbacks. I think we have to be a little aggressive on Russ and on Goff as they are coming back to us to make sure we get those stacks. But maybe we consider Dak if he falls, and then a late like Michael Gallup or late, I don't know, Brandon Cooks has probably gone off already, but
Even Jake Ferguson, I still think is an okay piece if you're drafting late tight ends, especially if
yes,
you're looking for correlation. Jameson Williams is here as well.
yes,
And they are right there beside each other if it works out that way. that we could double tap that game stack as well. So
Yes, I don't mind those at all.
we'll see how it plays out. But
and I mean, look, if Trevor Lawrence
yeah.
falls to us at 7-11, it's going to be hard to pass up a value like that.
Yeah, I think we'll be taking Trevor Lawrence almost 20 points past his ADP. It's just you got to take value where it kind of is just given to you by the draft if he gets to us. I don't think he does. These three teams don't have a quarterback yet, but that's the sort of thing that can kind of throw a wrench into your build. But if you're getting value, take it while it's free, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we one on his what two. We have two left. One's out of the way. We got two left. And this is a differentiator. You mentioned it, but if a player is drafted more than 12 spots past their ADP, Hayden Wink's research suggests that that's better than 90% of the players drafted. Also offsets any losses when it comes to, change in market value later.
Yeah, you talked about it on your show the other week. I was watching that live. I talked about it on my show earlier in that week. It's certainly something worth talking about, thinking about. Looks like we're going to get Trevor Lawrence. I think we have to take him. I don't think there's any way around this. Anthony Richardson goes before Trevor Lawrence.
We got to take him. I think we
You
take
have
him.
to. You have to. How do you know? Almost 20 points passes ADP. It'd be silly of us not to take Trevor Lawrence. And to be honest, this is not the first time I've seen this. Trevor Lawrence seems like he's a massive faller for realist. Like God knows why. I have no idea how or why. What do we got? What are we thinking now? Now we got a real pick to make here.
I know. I mean, I see some Denver there. We've got Sutton and we've got Javonte Williams, our Denver possibilities. David Montgomery at running back too. Your call here, Cody.
I would rather wait on the Denver correlation. I love David Montgomery. I think the way I've been looking at David Montgomery, I've said this a few times, is this is basically his floor, in my opinion, in this offense with this team. Maybe less carries, but similar yards, similar touchdowns. Look at what Jamal Williams did last year. I think there's not a chance that Jahmyr Gibbs is just a 250 carry back that also catches 60 catches. It's just not going to happen. There's going to be a lot for David Montgomery to eat in this offense. So this is what I'm looking at. This right here as basically even the receptions and yards. That's basically what I'm looking at as a floor for David Montgomery if he's healthy all year.
I think that was a great pick because we've got essentially three players who are pretty identical. Jones has more of the upside. Sanders has more of the backfield to himself, but David Montgomery has the touchdowns possibility, and so I think all three of them bring something slightly different to the table, but they're all of the same like tier-ish. Jones at the top of the tier, but I don't hate those running backs either.
No, me neither. And with the Trevor Lawrence pick, we got some week 17 correlation with Miles Sanders. So that's a helpful free little kind of literal freebie with 83. That's insane. I've seen this a few times with Trevor Lawrence. He seems to just be falling in drafts. And he never falls quite to me, but this time he did. I'll take it. But it's kind of wild. I don't really know why people are starting to soften on Trevor Lawrence. And with Anthony Richardson going there, that's what I was kind of talking about in the before we started drafting. Like it's just madness. And this is kind of something that's just happening in best ball too much, where guys are thinking from a dynasty lens.
Well, Zach Charbonnet goes off over Dalvin Cook right now.
It's just,
what are we doing, people?
Yeah, it's crazy. People are thinking of best ball like it's a dynasty game. Like this is not even redraft. You know what I mean? Like you need to be thinking of this year and realistically week to week. That's why spike weeks are so important. That's why a lot of the numbers that you talk about are so important, right? It's wild the amount of what I call mistakes that are made. Yes. I don't mind taking a little bit of Zach Charbonnet, but certainly not before a guy like Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, no.
It's getting a little egregious if you ask
I
me.
mean,
But
Evan Ingram, I know it's a pipe dream,
you
but
did.
that
You
would
should
be a
have
nice
said it.
stack.
You should have just watched the board go. Now it's gonna happen.
But the stack would be too beautiful at that
Oh,
point.
let's just cross our fingers and not really talk about it. But
um,
we also
uh,
have, the Jameson Williams. I think we'd be getting a little overkill on Detroit. So at this point, probably
but maybe,
off the board.
Prescott could be there. David Njoku with Cleveland. I can't remember why we were talking about that, but
The Jets, we
yeah,
we don't particularly need him, but
no,
Dak Prescott certainly could play in this build. We'd have to bring it back late with probably tight end, and Cooks is probably gone. I think, right? Yeah,
yeah, Cooks is off the board. Yep.
maybe Gallup, but we'll see how this kind of plays out. Realistically, I think we have one team to get by.
I think so.
This team. Oh, so chances are looking pretty
Wow.
good. This is
Oh boy.
Bradley. I like the team. If this happens, I like our team.
Cody, this is great.
We got a runner. I think we
If
got
we
a runner.
if we win BBN or we win whatever this puppy is, I expect we split it 50-50. Oh,
While we're on the clock, what are your thoughts here? What are your thoughts here? Do you
Oh
want to go wide
man.
receiver?
Oh man. Yeah, I think we go wide receiver here. I'm not a fan of Juju, but here, a bull argument. Yeah, we can go
something like that is I don't hate either with our
sure.
strength at wide receiver.
Damian Harris, I like him in the touchdowns, half PPR, boom.
Let's do that. Okay, make it easy. Yeah, no, this team is looking pretty tasty, if you ask me. I mean, and this is the kind of thing. This is actually kind of perfect that it worked out this way. We're here talking about correlation in the first 4 rounds. We're taking Chargers, Broncos, Lions. We're taking these players that
Jacksonville, which is an ascending offense.
We're planning on correlating later with, right? And then we fall into this Jacksonville stack with a total of 40, 50 something points total past ADP.
That correlates to Miles Sanders.
Yeah, we just lucked out. So again, the point is, be fluid, be fluid and take what the draft gives you, and just be ready to shift and pivot on a dime kind of thing. So, yeah, this draft is really working out for us, in my opinion.
And there are some wide receivers that, if they come back around to us, I'm very interested in this spot. I probably shouldn't say them out loud because we might get sniped on them, but there are some wide receivers in this area that are very interesting. To me.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's 2 in particular that we're both thinking.
There's a third one, maybe too. There's a third one. Yes.
And then we can probably hold off, I think, on Russell Wilson. We'll see. We'll see who's still on the board when it gets there, but it might be.
I mean, with the way people have been falling, we have to also consider some ADP values. We're in round 10. I think we consider ADP fallers until about round 13.
Yeah, and then it's who you like. Yeah. I agree with that. And it's the player, right? Like a guy like Trevor Lawrence falling to where he fell, there's no way you can't take him.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And then we got, extra lucky with Evan Ingram coming back too. That's kind of madness to me, but hey, I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it. And so that equals, we have a strong quarterback room already, a strong tight end room already. And we've been able to build up our running back and wide receiver rooms with getting that value at ADP from the one-offs quarterback tight end.
Yes.
So this is kind of a dream draft, if I'm being honest with you. This doesn't happen very often.
I'm here for it. I'm so here for it.
Yeah. Jeez, we might have a runner in this thing. And with the puppy this year, it's got that baked in season long prize as well. So yeah.
Chef's kiss, Cody.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss.
Exactly. There's no better time than the present to get a deal like that on Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram. But 8 picks away. I don't think running back is certainly not something we should focus on. That's for sure.
I think we take one more running back or 0 running backs.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we can consider one late one, but I would be okay if we didn't take another one because of the non-overlapping bye weeks.
Yeah, we can certainly let the running back kind of room come to us as the
Yes.
draft goes. I there's no reason whatsoever to force a running back in here.
Yes.
So I think we can certainly agree
The
on
3
that.
wide receivers I like are still on the board.
Um, yeah, the two that I think we definitely need to be taking are certainly on the board. Russ is creeping up as well. We could think about that if we end up getting sniped.
I
But
think we
I think we
definitely
got a lot
take
of
one.
options.
We might take two. We also have Goff, there too.
But I really don't want to take two quarterbacks to correlate
Week
bye
9.
weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
just because
Ooh,
there's no point in
that's
doing
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Good. That's pointing it out.
So
No, and
there
Goff
goes
goes off
Goff.
anyways. That's fine. And two of the wide receivers that I like are still out there. So Mooney went off. I like Mooney.
Hmm. I have probably zero Mooney as well. I'm just not with the wide receiver that they brought in, DJ Moore, Chase Claypool. Obviously, Cole Kmet's still there. The running game's going to play a huge role. I just don't think there's going to be enough volume for
I
Darnell
get it,
Mooney.
but I was in an FFPC draft last week and I got him round 14. So, like,
If you're getting value like that, sure, yeah, can't go wrong there.
I mean, we're sweating out one player here, Cody.
I think we both know who that is, and unfortunately, this guy's going to auto draft, and we're,
Oh,
we're taking Zay Jones,
we are,
obviously.
Cody. We are full pants off in this draft. Oh
This
my
is
gosh.
this is going really well. And then there's a favorite wide receiver of mine in the 17th, 18th round, which is a
Ooh.
question we just got asked, and I will answer that maybe at the end. I don't want to get sniped here. Hopefully, do you think this guy's in the? Are you in our draft? Russian collusion? Are you in our draft? If you are, tell me, and I won't spill the beans. Who do we want here? Gallup was the other guy I think we were thinking about there.
I
Can't go Russ because of bye weeks.
Dulcich. I like Dulcich.
Same bye week though.
Same
Again,
bye week. Yikes.
we could go with Tank just because it does correlate with what. Oh no, that's Jacksonville. No. Oh no, we got Tank. My bad.
That's
We
okay.
ran out of time. It
Oh,
correlates.
how dare we? How dare we take Tank Bigsby? I don't hate Tank Bigsby.
I don't at all either. I just forgot how much Jacksonville will have, but now we have a full stack. Will not be picking another running back in this entire
No, we're
draft.
set at running back.
That's for
We'll
sure.
just hammer wide receiver at this point, and then consider some late round tight ends.
So since this guy's not in our draft, this is a player that I have an obscene amount of exposure to, and I will continue to draft him. I will have 70% exposure to him if it keeps his ADP stays where it's at. And I think we're going to end up drafting this guy because it makes 1,000,000% sense for us to do that. And that is, answer your question. Russian collusion. Terrace Marshall, the junior, is a guy that I am just super in love with, especially at ADP, and it correlates with what we've been doing with the Jacksonville Carolina stack for week 17. So I think that's a great option for us late in the draft. But to answer your question, this is a wide receiver that I adore greatly.
I get it. I think the price is something that we shouldn't ignore. I'm not in on Terrace Marshall. Like, I guess I'm not in on Carolina's passing offense year one. I don't think Thielen's going to be very good. I don't think Mingo is a strong prospect profile. Like, he just doesn't fit the prospect profile that you want. He's essentially LaVisca Chenault, who they already have on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then DJ Chark, I think, is my favorite of the four, but he's expensive and he has foot injuries. And those are the two things that I'm also considering. So I don't mind Terrace Marshall at his price because you're not investing very much in him. he just has not shown that he's good at the NFL level. That's my concern, is that I don't think he's particularly good. At least Thielen has shown in the past he's good, even though he was dust last year. Chark has shown that he's good, but he's injured a lot. And Mingo is the new shiny toy, so maybe you'll talk yourself into those, but he's very expensive as well. So, I think the price point is the reason we're in on Terrace Marshall.
Yep, you're not wrong. And there is a pathway for him to be the wide receiver one on that team. I think that's absolutely possible for that to come true. He's 6'4", 210, 15 pounds, runs about 4'4". I'm all in on that at that price tag. Like you said, it's free. Again, like I talked about earlier about Zamir White, if there's a guy in round 18, 17 and 18 that has a legitimate pathway to be the number one at his position with the team, sign me up. Absolutely sign me up. So there's a lot of people, a lot of guys get drafted in round 17 and 18 that won't even make a team, that will not even be on an NFL roster. So Terrace Marshall will be, Zamir White will be, another guy, Tank Dell. I love Tank Dell as well. He will be. So, give me a guy that I know is going to be on a team and has a pathway to being the number one wide receiver, running back, whatever it is.
So there's a tight end that I'm interested in at this spot that could correlate. And then a wide receiver as well that'll also correlate. I'm thinking about. I will just say it out loud. Do you mind if I do?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
When
we're falling 20 points past ADP, don't say it, because I know.
I like Gerald Everett and I like Marvin Mims.
I agree with that as well. I would say Jaden Reed. I really, really like Jaden Reed.
Yep,
but
he's another player that I'm good with. I'm good with Jaden Reed.
Yeah. I have been clicking a little bit of Hyatt. Not in this build that we're building right here, but I have been clicking his name a little bit.
We got sniped on Everett.
That's not too big of a deal with Evan Ingram. We can bring back a late round, even like we talked about earlier with Jake Ferguson. I would be fairly comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I don't mind that. But maybe we do go heavy wide receiver here.
Yeah.
I talked with Sam Sherman of ADP Chasing about Tyquan Thornton, and we both agreed that his prospect profile isn't very good, and he's probably a bad player, but if he gives you 3 spike weeks, he has more than paid off.
Do we want to do you want to take him this build? Because I think we can still get Mims here. Or do you want to go Jaden Reed?
Let's go Jaden Reed. I'd prefer Jaden Reed. If we 4, 3, 2 seconds. Did we get it in? We got him in.
Let's go. Reed. And then we'll go Mims.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm actually, and again, like I do think that
there's a very low bar for Tyquan Thornton to be able to pay off, and he just has the speed. He's like Mecole Hardman to be able to. All you need are 3 weeks from him to pay off this ADP and be a contributor.
Yeah. Yeah. And with what I was going to say about Marvin Mims here, like, yes, it's a very, very, very low possibility, but I think it's possible that he ends up being the wide receiver one on this team. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, at least a wide receiver two. Like you can't tell me that there's zero potential that he doesn't usurp Cortland Sutton, or they trade Cortland Sutton and he becomes the number 2 option on this team. He's, low 4.3 speed, maybe even low 4.3 speed at the combine, and Russell Wilson throws a great deep ball. So again, spike week potential. I have quite a lot of exposure to Marvin Mims personally.
I'm drafting a ton of Marvin Mims. You mentioned it. Big speed guy, outside wide receiver, early declare. When we look at players who succeed in the NFL, one of the big stars for many of these players are they an early declare? Because someone in the NFL is telling them, come out early because you're good, and so for him to be traded up for as the first pick by Sean Payton, Sean Payton's looked at this offense and says, you know what we need? We need Marvin Mims. And I think the pipe dream is wide receiver 1, But
Yeah, I agree.
I think wide receiver 2 could very well be in the cards. I think he could very quickly get into the 3 wide receiver sets. He would obviously outplay KJ Hamler very quickly. Tim Patrick is coming back from the ACL tear. I think that's pretty easily accessible, that role. And then you mentioned in the second half of the season, that's when some of these spike weeks for the good wide receivers tend to happen more often. So I'm
Yeah.
in on that, and
Yeah.
fits pretty well with our build.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think it's an extremely low possibility, and we need a lot of things to go right, but it's not outside the realm of possibility
Well, it
like it
would go
is with.
badly for our team if Jerry Judy is not the wide receiver 1 on
Yeah,
this team.
true, true. But we have that insurance as well. So, but
Yes.
like, if for someone like Curtis Samuel, DJ Chark going in the same kind of realm or area, those possibilities really don't exist for those players. Maybe you could
Right.
say DJ Chark, but not particularly, and certainly not Curtis Samuel. So,
Well, like DJ Chark's ceiling is like a high end wide receiver 3, and
yeah,
that's fine. That's
he just is what
okay.
he is. He is what it is. That's okay. So,
Yeah, we're another draft
to
tonight.
answer this, I'm not gonna take up any more of Bradley's time. He's been giving me way too much. I will be drafting puppies after this off stream. If you want to join in with some drafts, look out for my name. You'll see me in there. So join me in the best ball streets, as Bradley I think coined the term. And I'll see you in there. But we won't be after this draft. We'll let Bradley go to bed here. It's a little
I'm
earlier in the night for me where I
I'm
live.
East Coast.
Exactly.
What time zone are you in there, Cody?
Central, so it's eight
Okay,
30 here, so it's a couple hours later for you. So again, I won't
sure.
take up any more of Bradley's time. Thank you so much for the time you're giving us. So yeah,
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a pants off team, here.
yeah.
Like Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram combined 30 spots after ADP. Was there like a news blurb that we missed? Like,
Yeah, you almost got to pull up Google quickly and fire in the names. Did I miss news? Is there a torn ACL I don't know about?
yeah, yikes.
What are your thoughts now? We obviously need another tight end at some point. We need another quarterback.
We can't take
What are we thinking?
Laporta. Well, I mean, we can if we want like a 3 tight end build. We would just need someone who's not week 9. I love Tyler Conklin this late. I like Dawson Knox this late. I'm like Mike Gesicki. These are tight ends that I'm like rotating through at this spot. And, you know, for someone like Cody, who does a lot of these drafts, this is one of those strategies of you like a lot of these tight ends late. Let's just rotate through them to keep exposure, because for at this point, you're just banking on a touchdown from these
Yeah.
players. And I like Tyler Conklin actually as a player who can access double digit touchdowns, given the history of Aaron Rodgers targeting his tight ends in the red zone.
What are your thoughts on a Mike Gesicki and then bringing it back with Mac Jones later to get at least a little bit of correlation with our QB2?
I like Gesicki's upside. I think the offense will be better for Mac Jones. My only concern with Jones is that he has never had a 23-point game in his career.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly not wrong. But who do you like at quarterback? That is my next question then.
I mean, we could go Purdy. I like him late. I like Kenny Pickett is fine, but I'm fine.
Okay, we'll take Conklin because I do like Conklin quite a bit. I mean,
Okay.
this is with the stat line that was about to show up there is with friggin' Zach Wilson
Right.
and Mike White throwing in the football.
Like
So
Conklin is one of the
yeah,
most underrated tight ends in the NFL. I've stayed up late watching Tyler Conklin film. Like, I am a Conklin stan, and I think it's great. He's clearly better than Uzama or any other tight end on the team. So
yeah. Well, we saw that even last year with Uzama. I'm okay with going with Kenny Pickett here, way past his ADP, and he's
sure.
the highest upside to me with what's left.
Kenny Pickett was top 6 last year in PFF grade of throws 20 yards down the field or further.
Yeah, and he's got this rushing upside that
Yep.
is good for having a onesie naked Kenny Pickett when he has
Yes.
that rushing value, right? So yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that. I think I would like to have some sort of Pittsburgh
I mean, we can
correlation here,
throw
but
in like Calvin Austin last round if you want.
I think that's forcing it a little too much. But I like where your head's at, though.
I like Marvin Jones for the first 6 weeks. That would be a hedge of, Jameson Williams is out for the first 6 weeks. Jones is a touchdown maker. I think it makes sense in half PPR. It would also give us a little bit of a lean into the regular season tournament, if we wanted to go that way.
What's your take on Justin Ross just kind of off the board? I'm not drafting Justin Ross at all, by the way. Disclaimer. I'm just wondering what your take is.
Yeah, like if I'm taking Kansas City late, I'll rotate through Ross. I'll rotate through Richie James. Richie James was respectable last year for the New York Giants. Like I think he's a name that people shouldn't ignore. 57 catches, 4 touchdowns, almost 600 yards. Like on a bad Giants offense, put him in as the wide receiver 3 on Kansas City. I mean that's a possibility.
Yeah, and for Russian collusion here, asking the question earlier for late round guys, Paris Campbell, I think might be the guy that ends up winning that slot role with the Giants. I don't hate Paris Campbell. Josh Palmer is one injury away to being basically exactly potentially what he was last year. I'm okay taking a few shots on Josh Palmer. I'm certainly not forcing it. I was drafting him a ton last year, but with QJ coming in, Tank Dell, Darius Slayton has led this team in receiving 2 of the last 3 years. I don't hate Darius Slayton, especially for spike week stuff. Mecole Hardman, just a classic best ball darling, always been drafted.
I love Hardman. Like pick 200.
Khalil Shakir, I like as well. I think he's certainly. Oh man, are you watching this show? Snipes us.
Okay, here's a really deep cut. Deontay Harty. Love him.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
He got guaranteed.
I know a lot of people do.
He was, I think, in the top 5 2 years ago in yards per route run among all wide receivers. Yeah, 36 for 570. I mean, okay, let's take a step back. It's going to be Steph Diggs. It's going to be Gabe Davis. The wide receiver 3 position is very open. And if we are out on Dalton Kincaid, which you either are in or you're out on Dalton Kincaid. If you're out on Dalton Kincaid, it makes sense that Deontay Harty is the guy that they paid a lot of money to be the slot guy.
What did they pay him?
I think they paid him I think it was $8 or $10 million total. And let me pull it up on Spot Track so I'm not looking like a fool. But
you like in just a straight up vacuum, do you like him over Khalil Shakir?
Yes. Deontay Harty signed a 2-year, $9.5 million deal with 4.7 due at signing, but over $5 million guaranteed.
Here's my concern, though: is he just not exactly Isaiah McKenzie in this offense?
No, he's better. He's significantly better. Like Isaiah McKenzie just wasn't good at football. Deontay Harty is good at football.
We'll circle back on that and maybe take them. But what are your thoughts here? We're obviously probably going to go wide receiver. I think you can agree with that.
So, yeah.
So who are you who's popping out to you in this? What are your thoughts on Greg Dortch even?
I like Greg Dortch late. I like Corey Davis late. I mentioned Marvin Jones as, someone that could be catching touchdowns, half PPR consideration. Darius Slayton, I like this late. You mentioned the spike weeks. I think those are some players. Maybe I'm not huge on Chenault because but Braxton Berrios. Oh, I like Braxton Berrios very late.
Let's go Slayton because there's possible he's this again, and that's more than fine in basically 18th round. And then
Darius Slayton has a 4% career top 5 rate.
Yeah. Two of the last 3 years, he's led that team in receiving.
Right.
That's not nothing either. I don't love the situation completely, but he's still on the team. He's going to be on the team. And he's led the team in receiving 2 of the last 3 years. So there you go. I might have just said, all right, you're going to talk me into it, and I'm willing to draft my first Deontay Hardy share if you have a strong conviction, because it feels like you do.
I mean, I really like Deontay Hardy. I think he's getting overlooked a lot,
Unless
and
you want to
because
go
that
with
money.
Meikle.
I mean,
But I
either
guess we
one.
already have Conklin. You know what? You talked me into it. That is a fair contract for a guy, especially coming off
Yeah,
an
Deontay
injury.
Hardy, wide receiver 6 in receiving grade 2 years ago in 2021. That was ahead of Tyreek Hill, ahead of CeeDee Lamb, ahead of Jamar Chase, ahead of T. Higgins, Steph Diggs, and that was on 57 targets. It wasn't like it was 5 targets or 10 targets. 57 targets. It's not nothing.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We'll see how this plays out, but realistically, it does not matter who you take in 17 or 18th rounds. It's just, well, it does matter. It's just have conviction and have a take and have a reason behind it, and then just live or die with it. But
yeah, not nothing money, decent profile. The only hit on Deontay Hardy, I mean, okay, there are two things. There are two. The reason why he's getting drafted late, he's coming off of an injury last season, which is fair.
Yeah.
And then the second is that he is 5'6".
Yeah. So that's my concern with him just being exactly what Isaiah McKenzie was, just a gadget guy who could have 2 spike weeks. And if it happens in week 17, awesome. But you're not wrong either that he could be better than that. That's very possible as well. He looked really good in a bad offense a couple of years ago. So,
I mean, this
he
was New
should look
Orleans
better in a good
2021.
offense. Yeah.
He had a 8 target game, a 7 target game, a 7 target game, a 5 target game, an 8 target game.
Yeah.
I mean, in a team that is so desperate for a good wide receiver too, at least this guy is putting up decent enough numbers that you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, an 86.7 PFF receiving grade is pretty good, and a 2.7 yards per route run. I mean, Tyquan Thornton didn't even have 1 yard per route run last year.
And to continue talking myself into this, he is what they wanted Gabe Davis to be last year.
Yes.
They desperately wanted and needed a deep threat on this team. They tried to force Gabe Davis into that role. It clearly didn't work. And then they go out and they put some money behind Deontay Hardy. Let's just keep talking ourselves into this.
I love it. I love it. I'm so here for the Deontay Hardy love.
Last little question here. Thoughts on Musgrave? I like Musgrave, but in that offense with two rookie tight ends, a young quarterback that's inexperienced, 2 good pass catching running backs, a good, in my opinion, a good slot receiver. Jaden Reed, by the way, is basically I look at him exactly like Randall Cobb, and I think that's exactly what the Packers are looking at him as well, drafting him as a rookie. I think he's a great. I think he will be a really good slot receiver for this team. So I'm in a dynasty situation, yeah, I like Musgrave, but in best ball, I'm not really drafting him personally. You have a take on Musgrave quickly?
Yeah, the second round tight ends usually don't pay off rookie year. I mean, you mentioned that, and then you mentioned that Kraft is also there. Kraft is a respectable receiving tight end. It's not as though he was just brought in to block. So you've got what we expect to be a bad offense for a rookie tight end who is going to compete with another rookie tight end. There just aren't green flags for Musgrave to be paying off year one.
Yeah, I liked Cade Otton a ton last year as a rookie. I would not even come close to putting Musgrave in that kind of conversation that I would with Cade Otton. But let's go through this team and then I'll get you out of here. Thank you so much again for your time. We got super lucky. 17 points past his ADP to get Trevor Lawrence. Kenny Pickett late, again, another 11, right on that borderline, 12 picks, passes ADP. We'll take that. No correlating bye weeks. Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Damian Harris, and then Tank Bigsby was kind of a panic pick by us, kind of an auto pick, but it correlates. It's not a big deal. We got A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, Zay Jones, Jaden Reed, Marvin Mims, Darius Slayton, Deontay Hardy, Evan Ingram, another 13 points passes ADP, and then Tyler Conklin to wrap it up. We got our bye weeks are covered, 2-5-9-2. This is a really good team. I think we got a runner.
I think we do too. This looks like we got lucky in this draft and then doubly lucky because of how things fell our way. I like how we structured it. We have a really robust running back room. We've got 4 guys who can be starting for us at any time, and we did not pay. Aaron Jones was pick 59. We don't have a top 58 pick in the running back room, but I think it's very solid. We've got massive upside for the wide receivers. We've got a stack with Jacksonville, going on, Zay Jones and Evan Ingram. So there's a lot of upside to be had here, and not getting Aaron Rodgers to stack with Tyler Conklin, I think is fine. And, all of these players can exist pretty well. I'm happy with it, Cody.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, we could have had a tiny bit more correlation, but whatever. When you're getting value and you're happy with your team, I'm not too worried about.
Well, getting Trevor Lawrence where we didn't probably offset the need to stack at that point.
Absolutely. I'm going to name this team here. What day are we? June 14th?
14th.
There we go. I think we got ourselves a runner.
Let's go. I'm here for it.
All right, let's get rid of this. All right. So yeah, I again, Bradley, can't thank you enough for all your time. Very generous. I really appreciate you coming on, chopping it up. This was awesome. I'd love to have you back later on in the season, maybe a little closer to the season where ADPs, I'm sure, will have shifted by then, and maybe we'll change some takes and have some different takes and things like that. So
yeah, we'll revisit all of our takes and be like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, maybe we'll take a look at the team we drafted, come back around and everything. For guys in the chat, yes, I will jump on some drafts. So look for Off the Schneid is my tag, and some puppy drafts. I got to try to fill this thing. But Bradley, thanks again for coming on. Let's remind the people, who you are, what you're about, and where they can find your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at @FFStalder. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Best Bell Fantasy. The bell stands for bell curve. So check that out. I also have a special Best Bell edition episode once a week featured on Player Profiler. That's exclusive to Player Profiler. So make sure you're checking that out. It's on Tuesdays from 8 to 9 p.m. I talk ADP shifts. I give a best ball lesson, and then I review submitted best ball teams and give feedback to drafters. So that's been something I'm doing this off season. The Best Ball Upside Guide is very close to coming out, so I'm excited to ramp that out very soon. So keep your eyes out for the Best Ball Upside Guide. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun chopping it up, Cody. Appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very tangible, actionable, stats-driven advice. Something that I like to follow. So definitely go follow everywhere there and listen in. Hit subscribe for myself, for Bradley as well on his channel. And we'll see you next week. We got another guest, so we'll see you in a week. We'll be drafting. We'll be chopping it up.